So remember, regression is used to find an equation that best fits our real-world data to help us then make predictions of what's going to happen in the future. Okay, we did this when we did our linear functions. Today, this is going to be exponential functions. It's all done in the calculator. The most difficult thing with this, remember, is knowing how to round. Some of us struggle with our rounding abilities. Make sure you pay attention to how it says to round, okay? So it says use the points to write an equation in exponential form, round to the nearest hundredth. If we remember back, our equation for an exponential function is what? Y equals a times b to the x. So y equals a times b to the x power. And remember, a is your starting value and b is your growth factor. Okay? If b is bigger than 1, then you are growing, and if b is less than 1, then you are decaying, okay? So, in order to write my exponential regression equation, I need to find a and I need to find b. So let's go to our calculator. Remember, we want to clear the calculator before we start. How do we clear it? Second plus 7, 1, 2. Everybody clear your calculator. Second plus 7, 1, 2. And then it should say RAM cleared. Then over here we have our directions. You're going to hit Stat, which is right below the delete button. So let's all follow along with me. So hit Stat. Then it says hit Edit, Enter. Enter X values into list 1. So 0, enter 1, enter 2, enter 3, enter. Enter the Y values into list 2. So you have to arrow over, and I'm going to do 6, enter 17, enter 56, enter 158, enter. Good? Do we all have our lists in? Our values in our lists? Anyone need me to wait? Okay. Then it says hit Stat again. So I'm going to hit Stat. Arrow over to Calc. Do we see how next to Edit it says Calc? Arrow over. Now this is where before we chose linear regression. But this is not a linear. It says it's exponential. So I need to hit 0. You can scroll if you want down to 0. Or you can just hit the number 0. See how 0 says exreg? That's for exponential regression. And then you hit enter a bunch of times till you can calculate. There's my A and my B. Okay, so let's write out our A and our B. And it says round to the nearest hundredth, which is what? How many numbers after the decimal? 2 numbers after the decimal. Okay, so A is 5.9. When you're rounding to 2 numbers, you look at the third number. Does the 5 round the 1 up or keep it a 1? Rounds it up to a 2. So there's my A. Then my B is 3.0. Look at the third number, which is a 5. So does that round the 0 up or keep it a 0? Rounds it up to a 1. So do I now have my A and my B? Is my B bigger than 1, guys? What do I notice about my Y values? They're growing, right? They're getting larger. So this should be an example of exponential growth. So then Y equals A times B to the X power. There is your exponential growth equation. What does this number out in front of the parentheses represent? Do we remember what the A? That's your starting value. So let's look up here. When X is 0, where did I start at? 6. Is 5.92 really close to 6? Should this equation 100% match my data, or is it a rough estimate? because real world data is not going to be 100% accurate, okay? We good? But that's kind of a way you can check yourself. My starting value, 5.92, really close to where we start. We're growing. What's 6 times 3? Is that really close? Yeah, because I'm multiplying each time by 3.01, okay? We good? Okay. So now we are going to do an exponential regression problem where it actually represents something, okay? So a cup of soup is left on the countertop to cool. The table below gives the temperatures in degrees Fahrenheit of the soup recorded over a 10-minute period. Okay, so we are going to go to our calculator. We want to clear it. How do we clear it? Second plus 7, 1, 2. Great job. We're going to follow our calculator steps. Hit stat, and edit is highlighted, so hit enter. Put your time as X, temp as Y. So put your X values in list 1. Then put your Y values in list 2. Once you put your values in, go back to stat, arrow over to calc, hit 0, enter, 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 enter. And there's my A and my B. We're going to round to the nearest hundredth again, okay? 2 numbers after the decimal. So my A is 180.3. Look at the third number, which is a 6. Does a 6 round the 7 up or keep it a 7? Rounds it up to an 8. My B is 0.9. Does the 3 round the 5 up or keep it a 5? Keeps it a 5. So guys, is this a growth or a decay? Again, 2 ways we could look at it. Look at the table. Are your Y's getting bigger or smaller? Smaller, so it should be a decay. Also, what's my B value? B is less than 1, meaning this is a decay. So now I have my A and my B. We can write our equation. Y equals your A, which was 180.38, times B, which is 0.95, raised to the x power. Now, before we move on, is this really close to the starting value? Yes. Are we getting smaller really fast, or is it pretty slow? Like, are these super far away from each other or pretty close? Pretty close. Is this pretty close to 1? Yeah. So we're not getting small really, really fast, okay? But we are getting smaller, which is why my B is less than 1. So, and let's think, does this make sense? Should the temperature of your soup cool off over time? Yeah. Okay. So, what's the temperature of the soup after 20 minutes? So, 20 minutes is your what? Minutes is the X, the time. So, I'm going to rewrite my equation. What am I going to replace with 20? X with 20. So, it's going to be Y equals 180.38 times 0.95 raised to the 20th power. I can put this in my calculator. Now this time it says round your temperature to the nearest tenth, which is how many numbers after the decimal? 1. Okay, so look, it's 64.66. So does the 6 round the 6 up or keep it a 6? 6 rounds things up, so it should be 64.7. Okay, so Y equals 64.7 degrees Fahrenheit. Remember, these real-world problems should have units because these numbers now represent something. Okay? We good? Okay, let's do another one. Jean invested $380 in stocks. Over the next 5 years, the value of her investment grew as shown on the table below. So we're going to write an equation. Clear your calculator. Second plus 712. Now before we even go on, it says two things. The investment what? Grew. So this should be an example of a growth. Also look at your table. Are the y values getting bigger or smaller? Bigger. So your b should be bigger than 1. Okay. Go to Stat, Edit. Put your values in. Again, guys, the biggest thing is make sure you put your data in correctly. If you put your data in incorrectly, it's going to give you incorrect values, okay? So make sure you take your time and put the data in correctly. Once I have it in, what do I do next? Stat, Calc, 0 for exponential regression. Notice how once I hit 0, it also says reg up there for exponential regression. Enter, 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 enter. We're going to round to the nearest hundredth again, so 2 numbers after the decimal. So my A is 379.92 because the 9 rounds the 1 up, so 0.92. Guys, is that really close to where I started? Yes. Okay, then my B is 1.0. Does the 9 round the 3 up? Yep. So this is an example of growth. So let's write our equation. Y equals 379.92 times 1.04 raised to the x power. Y'all can't see that. There we go. So then it says, use the equation to predict what the value of her stock will be in 10 years after she purchases it. So 10 is your what? Your x. So write your equation. Y equals 379.92 times 1.04 raised to the 10th power. And then you put that in your calculator. Now, this says round to the nearest hundredth. Why do you think it says hundredth? We're talking about what here? Money. When we talk about money, money always comes as a whole number or to the nearest cent, which is hundredth. Okay? So y equals a dollar value, because we're talking about money. 562 point what? 37. Very good. So I want y'all to try the next one on your own. Try the next one on your own.